And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Uncle Gold podcast. My name is Borna, and today we have a great episode for you again. We're going to go to the Arctic North and have a really cool episode. Kevin Leahy, welcome to the Uncle Gold podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you, man. Just a little context for everyone watching. We met like 2 years back in your hostel. We're getting coffees during the whole lockdown situation. And then last year, me and my friend started thinking about doing a race, and we came to you for tips. And then I noticed that you're really into doing these long distance runs, and you gave us some great tips for our preparation. But before we go into the race, can you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us like how you got here?
Kevin Leahy. I got here, I suppose, I started my adventure career, I suppose, maybe 6-7 years ago. I left Australia and went to South America. I ended up doing a lot of like long hikes and treks and climbs and loads of different types of adventures, and thought like that's really life for me, a lifestyle for me kind of thing. And I'm from Killarney, so I was moving back here and I saw the Kerry Way and I just saw it and wanted to do it. It said something inside me said, yeah, let's do that. And so I did that once, and then I did it a second time and branched out into some adventure racing like cycling, kayaking and running.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, slowly but surely, year after year, I've been kind of just taking on bigger and bigger adventures. So just this year was kind of my biggest one so far. It was 2 500k races up in the Arctic. So there was a 500k kilometer race up in the Yukon in north of Canada, and then 3 weeks later I flew to Sweden and did a 500 kilometer race up there.
Crazy, man. Like when I just hear the numbers, like that's also like mind-boggling. Like you mentioned also the Kerry Way. Like for people that know, what's the Kerry Way Ultra?
The Kerry Way, I suppose we're in Kerry, so the Kerry Way is the local ultra marathon here. So I suppose it's also Ireland's longest foot race. It's a 190 kilometer foot race all around a famous walking trail around
Mm-hmm.
Kerry. So typically it's the cutoff for the race is 40 hours. Some of the winners did it last year in sub 24.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So some people do 200 kilometers in less than 24 hours.
Yeah. I was one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
I was probably the 7th person to do it within the 24 hours. But like last year was exceptionally good conditions. It was really a fast year for the race kind of thing. And had been dry for a couple of weeks leading up to it.
Did you do any sports before going in these like ultra long races? Like, is there anything that people that get into it somehow prepare? Or
no, personally I didn't. I suppose when I was younger, I was never a runner. I played football, soccer, quite sporty with that. But then, hit like 2021 and all that kind of fell away. I was in Australia, not really doing much, falling in and out of like bouts in the gym and stuff like that, like the January stuff. But that
never really getting the 6-packs by summer, right?
Yeah. Never really did anything consistently when I was in Australia, but I suppose I knew I wanted to, so that was why I kind of cut the ties with Australia and was setting up a new life for me again, and I knew it was going to be focused around adventures kind of thing.
These races in nature are amazing. Like I only did one that was like really long like that. Well, not long like that. But it was super fun. I fell in love with it, and I'm definitely going to do more. And your tips help there really a lot. For someone listening who's maybe interested in going into something like that, what would you say would be some of the starter tips for someone who's just getting into it?
Starter tips, I suppose, from an injury point of view, don't do too much too soon. Don't set your goal too big. Don't say I want to do a 200 kilometer race in 3 months' time. You gotta build up week after week. 10% a week, and taking rest weeks every 4th week, and just listen to your body as well. If you're pushing it, if your body's feeling okay, you can increase the intensity, you can increase the volume of training you're doing. But if you're feeling it, really feeling it the morning after runs, and then your body's probably not ready, it hasn't fully adapted yet, so you just kind of increase slowly kind of thing. And you don't have to push it. It's like, for me, the vast majority of my training is very slow training, zone 1, zone 2 heart rate kind of thing, especially with this endurance. You don't need to do a lot of fast training kind of thing. It's all about building up your diesel engine, as you say, building up your metabolic heart rate, so you're burning fats rather than carbohydrates. So like just taking it, enjoying training. Not like if you're training for endurance, if you can't breathe through your nose, I would suggest you're probably training too fast. Maybe do 1 fast session a week. There's a couple of tips. And just listen to your body, especially with diet and stuff as well. Try a few things, see what works. You might need salt, you might not need salt, and figure out how much water you need per hour on a hot day, how much water you need per hour on a cold day.
That's true. Usually people get into running like that for weight loss, but I did it with my friend just to, kind of see how it would work out, because we'd never done such a huge race. And it was 150K, the quest of Beara. Yeah. And we had cycling and kayaking and running as well. And one of his problems was that his knees were hurting, and he tried to lose as much weight as he could in a short period of time. And running is usually great for that. And it was summer, it was getting warmer, so he started losing weight, but it still didn't go as fast for him because he had a lot of muscle mass, so he couldn't lose it that fast. I suppose another tip that could help for people is to just, just drop some weight, because then you're not that heavy on the track and it doesn't hurt your knees that much. Because he was feeling it a lot after every training, and that kind of made us a little bit slower. We couldn't, prepare as intensive as we wanted to. We had to make stops more often. But I think that's better, because then you don't get injured, right? You can do more in the long term, right? Yeah, that's right. And look, like his knee issue might have been because of his weight, but it could also been because his quads weren't strong enough or something like that. So again, a big part of it for me is mobility. I'm not big into gyms, but I do some kind of gymnastics type training sessions. One of them a week would be good for a person to start off with, just strength and mobility kind of thing, a little bit of stretching and strengthening the core and stuff like that. That the weaker your core is, the longer you run, you're just kind of crumpled over kind of thing. So just focusing on a bit of mobility. It's not all just running and cycling. It's important. Yeah, makes sense. Do you core? I understand that. Do you do any back trainings to kind of keep your
back so I train with a local guy, Andrew Fitzgerald, and we do, as I say, kind of old school gymnastics. And so there's some back stuff, like. There's Russian twists, and there's a whole variety of funny things that I can't remember the name of them. But like a mobility, I suppose not everyone's going to want or need to get a mobility coach, but one can really help, kind of thing. If you get someone who really knows how to assess your body and they're able to pick out where you're weak, where you're strong, that's really important. Like I saw Andrew, first time I saw Andrew, he started laughing at me. He said he didn't know I was able to run 150 kilometers because my hip flexors weren't really strong, and I didn't know much about my hip flexors at the time. So again, if you can get the right person to assess you properly and tell you where you need to work on, it can save you a lot of time.
Hip flexors are the muscles on the inner thigh.
Correct. Yeah. So I worked out hard and strengthened them for 6 or 8 weeks, and that really kind of loosened up something that was always tight in my back. So like someone that really knows the body and the kind of mechanisms of the body is important.
Yeah, we should have done a little bit more of that now that I think about it. All right. What are some of the tips that you can give maybe for diet? Because, apart from losing weight, right? What should someone eat? What should someone not eat? And during such a long race, like, what do you eat during the 24 hours? Like, and how do you do it? Because we were thinking of doing like protein balls or stuff like that, but give us some tips on that as well.
So for 24, like for some tips, I suppose I find really good now. Date bombs, so like dates stuffed with almond butter and dark chocolate on the outside. It's quite a good snack. It's got dark chocolate, so you're not getting a really sugary hit. You got fats in the almond butter, and you got some carbohydrates in there. There's quite a few calories. So they're a good little treats. Like, but again, it's everybody's different. Some people do potatoes, some people do gel, some people can't eat, some people can have a ham and cheese sandwich. It's about kind of figuring out what works for you, kind of thing. And I suppose keeping it as healthy as possible. Bananas, you get potassium in bananas. If it's a hot race, you might be sweating a lot, so keep your eye on your salts as well. So maybe a salt tablet, like you can, if there's white patches on your t-shirt, you're a heavy salt sweater, so you need to replenish those electrolytes. Loads of things like those races I was doing in the long races. I was aiming for 6,000 calories a day. So because it was Arctic conditions, the temperatures were down as cold as minus 35. So I couldn't have a Snickers bar and I couldn't have a sandwich because I would have broken my teeth.
And what about water as well? Like, does it freeze?
It certainly freezes. Yeah. So people have different systems. Some people just have thermos flasks, but I wore a vest. I wore like a hydration vest in between my base layer and my mid layer, and that's how I use my body temperature. Then I had to straw coming out here, so I use my body
to keep it warm, from freezing. Yeah.
The odd time then you might let the straw hanging out the front and freeze, but if to stuff it in your to defrost it again.
Dude, those are some conditions that like you wouldn't think of that when preparing for a normal race. Like, Yeah. And how did you get to the Arctic at all? Like, where did you find out about the race? Like, how did you make the decision to do it? Like, tell us a little bit about pre-race.
Yeah, so about 3 years ago, I was just backpacking by myself in Canada, and I'd heard about the Yukon from a couple of different sources. You know, Jack London's got a book about it, Into the Wild, and I had a friend who said I would really like it, and I was just in Canada, and I was like, yeah, -40. I want to see what that feels like. So I flew from Vancouver up to Whitehorse and stayed at a hostel there, and it just so happened there was an ultra marathon. The Yukon Arctic Ultra was on like 5 or 6 days later, maybe a week later. So I offered to volunteer on it and help them out, and I heard they had a marathon. I saw some of the runners running around town, and I thought they'd be really specialist runners with specialist gear, and like I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, like I've got some of that gear kind of thing. So I did a 15K run and was feeling pretty okay, like in -20, -25, and then I asked the organizer, could I do the marathon? And he said I couldn't for insurance reasons. But so then I decided I was going to come back next year and do the 100 mile.
Okay.
So I ended up coming back, and I finished first foot racer in the 100 mile, and then came
Good
back
job,
and did the 300 mile just this year gone.
Wow, crazy. Like when I listen to the numbers, man, it's like, yeah. How long did you prepare for that race? Or is it more for you that you've been doing it so long that you're kind of always ready?
I think I'm getting to a stage now where I'm not always ready for a big race like that, but I'm at a stage where I can turn it around in about 3 months. So like my foundation fitness is pretty solid, and then it's like I'll pick a race, which I suppose has just happened to me in this last week. Like I wasn't going to train this summer, but I've just been offered a run in a racing across Switzerland race that's on in July. So I've just decided at the weekend I'm going to do that. So that's 390k with 24,000 meters of elevation. So now I've got 10 weeks to train for that race. So I was at a solid base, and okay, 10 weeks. I think I could do it kind of thing. But this race will be interesting because it'll be much hotter. It'll be 30 degrees instead of minus 30 degrees. So it's a 60-degree swing from my last race kind of thing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
When I think about it, I would rather do a race in the cold than in the scorching hot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Me too.
Yeah. Because when you're cold, like you can kind of keep yourself warm, right? By running, and when you're on 30 degrees, like you can't keep yourself cold anyhow. And especially if there's like no shade, or you're not running behind a mountain or something, like you're exposed to the heat, like you can get sunstroke. That happened to me almost during that race. I was kind of hoping that here in Ireland, it will be always kind of like cloudy and that it wouldn't be too hot, right? And then on that day, there was not a single cloud in Beara. It was like 30 degrees. And I was like, what is this? We weren't prepared for the heat. And we had to stop a few times, just in the shade to kind of cool down, do some breathing, get some like cold water on the cloth, and put it on our heads to kind of cool down. And then the last part with the kayaking, oh man, like the water cools you off so much, man. We felt so great at the end of the race. Like we felt the best at the end of the race because we cooled off a little bit in the water, and that kind of saved us from the heat. But I will definitely try a race somewhere in the cold, just to try it.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, like personally, I would definitely prefer the cold, but cold like -30, -20 comes with its own risks as well. If you take your gloves off for 1 or 2 minutes, you can have frostbite with a race or lose some fingers. Like people have lost feet and hands on cold races. So it's different. It's my preferred also, but it does come with the challenges. Like for example, in that race, my stove was -30 degrees. My stove wasn't working, so I had no way of cooking up food. So I was like nibbling on nuts, and nuts is another good one when you're for race food as well. Actually, a lot of fats and stuff.
Yeah, and they're hard anyway. So if they get a bit cold,
it doesn't break your teeth.
Yeah.
But my point was, things were kind of going wrong for me. It had snowed. There was about 1.5 feet of snow, and I'd been going for 30 hours without sleep, and my stove wasn't working. So it's kind of potentially a pretty bad situation for me. But I kind of kept eating nuts, and eventually just camped and slept for 3 or 4 hours and woke up again. And I was kind of ready to go again, kind of thing.
All right. So you're running, walking, like going through the snow for 30 hours without the cooking stove. So you didn't have a proper meal, right?
Correct.
Living on nuts.
Yeah.
And then like sleep for 3 hours and like, I'm good to go. And then how much longer after that did you go for?
My system, I can't remember specifically, but probably like 16, 18 hours. That was kind of my system. I'd go for 16, 18 hours and then take a 3 or 4 hour nap and then go again. Yeah.
Wow, brutal tempo. I know that in the military they force people like to do on like not a lot of sleep. Like, did you go through any military training before?
No.
Like, so you're not used to it doing it like that, right?
No, just from races. I know I've done it before, like, during races, so that's just how I know I can do it, kind of thing. To push that hard.
Yeah, because usually people recommend going for more sleep before the race, so you can kind of recuperate your body, get more energy, the muscles repair themselves and all of that. But do you do like no sleep preparations? Like, do you try to decrease the amount that you're sleeping before the race?
No, ideally I just sleep as normal before a race, but like this race in Canada, I flew in 3 days before, so I was jet lagged. I was like sleeping 2 or 3 hours, so I had like the total. I was sleep deprived going into the race, So, but, in the perfect scenario, you sleep as much as you can the night before a race, and a couple of nights before the race, I would say yes, be as rested as you can before any race you can. But look, the numbers are, I ran 1,000 kilometers. I slept for 24 hours over 13 days. So like our body is amazing. It can do things that I didn't think it was possible, that we don't think is possible. But once your mind pushes it, it'll do it, kind of thing. How healthy it is for you, I don't know. But God, I was okay. Like to finish the second race and no major mental damage, I think.
Well, you made it back in one piece. So, but you touched on a great point there, and I think that's a big topic in not even just the podcast, but also generally in life. People underestimate what they can do, and then they kind of settle for less. And nobody actually takes the time to explain this to like kids, and like that's not taught in schools. Like everyone's just like, here, learn this, go through it, and you can do whatever you want with it, right? Nobody tells you actually that you can push yourself a lot more than you actually believe that you can. And I think racing and stuff like that is great for like proving it to yourself. And tell me, how do you do like mental preparation, like visualization or affirmations or stuff like that? Do you do anything mentally training?
No, I don't do any mental training. I suppose I am kind of psyching myself up coming up to races, and just telling myself that no matter how hard it is, I won't give up and keep going, kind of thing. And it's not even like I'm not trying to win the races, or understand like go hard, you need to go really hard. It's like it's an endurance battle, and I'm just pushing myself hard, not like harder than what I feel I need to, or like that's going to put me into a danger zone at a certain point in these races. So I know I'm kind of mentally charging up for races, but I don't have any like meditation or anything like that. And again, I think it's like a muscle you kind of flex. It's like, right, I did the 200K, I can do that, or like I did that race, I didn't sleep for 50 hours. I can do that. I might think my mind's going to think I can't, but I know I can because I've done it before. And then it's like, I did that. I can push that, and I was still okay after that. I can push it a little bit further, kind of thing. Yeah,
that's true. I kind of felt the same after the 150. I felt like I could go for at least 20 more. Just because the lake cooled us down, we were kind of like rejuvenated. We were like, oh man, felt great. And
you kind of get a second wind as well. And well, once you get the second wind, it's like, I have a whole new energy now. Like my body's working off the fats now. It's not working on carbohydrates anymore. And if your body's burning fats instead of carbs, you have got loads of energy.
Yeah. Okay. What about gear? I suppose that when you're going to the Arctic, you're packing more gear than you would for a hot race, and things that, as we said, like 3 layers, things that you don't expect. How did you prepare for that?
So gear. So in the Arctic races, you're pulling a sled. So everything's on a sled behind you. So you're pulling your sleep, like you got a sleeping bag that's rated for minus 50 degrees. You got I carry a tent. You got your stove. You got food for 2 days. You got like equipment there if you need to light a fire. Water, like 4 liters of water, some like an emergency saw, someone like and again backup clothes. You got a down jacket. So like normal running, I'm running with a base layer, and a pants, and then a base layer on my top, and a mid layer and an outer layer. But then when you stop, you put on this big down jacket, like top of Everest down jacket, because you're stopping to produce that heat.
Really thick to keep you.
It's like a sleeping bag almost. So the minute you stop, you get that on, so you stop losing heat, and it keeps the heat in, kind of thing. A big part of doing well in those races is your layering, of being aware of your your body conditions. If you're moving too fast, you're sweating. If you're sweating, you're going to get wet clothes. If you get wet clothes, you're going to get hypothermia. You can't warm up. So it's like, okay, I'm starting to sweat a bit. I'll zip down my hoodie. I'll take off my hat.
Yeah.
Okay. Or it's getting cold again. I'll put on a second pair of gloves, kind of thing. So you're constantly being aware of your body and your body temperature and your body.
So you're adjusting as you go during the race.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned there the danger zone earlier. Were you ever in like a situation where you felt like, oh, I'm maybe pushing it a little bit too much, or if I don't change something right now, something might go wrong?
There was one time in the race in Sweden. I've been going for a long time. And I was just out of energy. I was trying to get to the Arctic Circle. There's a line that you're crossing into the Arctic Circle, and there was a cabin there. So I wanted to get to the cabin to sleep, kind of thing. But I'd been going for, again, maybe 35 hours through the night, and I just like was really wrecked. I was nearly out of food, and I was kind of like, I'll just keep going, and I'll cook. The sun was coming up, so my plan was to get there, cook some porridge, eat the porridge, and then sleep for 2 hours while I was digesting the porridge and get going again. But it was just felt like it was taking ages. And like about 2 kilometers from there, I stopped and lay down. And I think I've reached my limits now, kind of thing. But after a quick 5-minute rest, I got up and walked on again. But that was that was my mindset. I was like, oh, I've really pushed it here. I really was tired.
All right. Explain resting in the Arctic. Like, there's a danger of you falling asleep, right?
Yeah.
Because you fall asleep in minus 40 degrees, like you're not waking up. You're game over. You're done. Not just the race, but everything.
Unless you have the right stuff underneath you. Yeah.
Okay. How do you do a rest? Like, do you just like sit down, lay down? Like,
yeah, I used to just lay back on my sled, my pulk. So it's like your sleeping bag's in there, so that's inside. So you just lay back and try yourself. So if you fall off, you wake yourself up, kind of thing. Yeah. But again, it's not ideal, but it's just it could be a 5-minute nap, and a lot of the times it's just to take the weight off your legs, because when you're moving 20 hours a day, your legs do be fairly dead.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Man, it sounds hard.
Another thing is the sleeping, man. I suppose it's an interesting thing. Like, I brought on the second race in Sweden, on boat races, I had an inflatable sleeping mat. It's like a hand pump one that you pump up like that. There's just, I found it really awkward to be pumping it up, because you're always pushing into the snow. But then, like, towards the end of the second race, I changed over for one of those Z-fold mats. I think it's got an R rating of 2.1 or something. Okay. It turned out that's not thick enough. So you need to like at least 2 or 3 of them to give you the insulation from the snow, kind of thing. So the last night of the race in Sweden, I was trying to sleep on that, but it was just it's just the cold comes up through your bones, and it's sore.
Yeah.
Not conducive to good sleep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it doesn't sound like optimal conditions. Yeah. But tell me one thing, like, have you heard of the guy Wim-Hoff in Poland doing like the breathing and everything?
Yeah.
He, like, when you think about cold and what he's doing, can you comment on that? Because from what he's showing in YouTube videos and stuff like that, like, you can go into the cold without problems, right? And he does it like naked, taking people up mountains in snow and cold. Have you tried doing breathing exercises like that? And do you think that can help, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, I've never tried the Wim Hof. Sometimes, occasionally, I'll when I'm running, I'll breathe out and try and hold it for as many seconds as I can. Generally, I get to 12 or 13 before you might get a kind of a dizzy spell. And I suppose it's all increasing your VO2 max, kind of thing. So I've never formally tried it. Sometimes I'll do that just to test myself, see if I can get to 13 or 14. But
that's more like boxed breathing, right? Where you do like breathing in, holding it, and then breading out, right? And then keeping that.
What I do is just breathing out and then holding it. So you're breathing out all of the carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Again, I read it in the book. There's some science to it. But Wim Hof, that sounds amazing, but there's loads of things that can work, and sometimes it's just placebo. So placebo can work as well. I'm not saying I wouldn't try the Wim Hof. I definitely do it out of interest, because I like new experiences. But I didn't need it on the races. But like breath, there's definitely something to breathe in. I suppose generally I go to like big breaths in through my nose, out through my mouth, kind of thing, if I'm feeling something.
I think that's how he does. Like, but there's no trick to it, right? There's like you can breathe in, breathe out, and hold it. There's like three things that you can do with your breath. I think he does it as well. I think that one of the parts of his method is that you actually have to kind of embrace the cold, you know, and as you said, the placebo effect of like, yeah, I'm okay being cold, right? Yeah. And the constant breathing supplies you with extra oxygen. And the thing that happens is when you do it, it's like you can do it here on the couch and it will feel like you're running a little bit, you know, your whole body circulation starts flowing faster and, you know, you just get warm from the inside, right? And that's kind of the basis of it. But somebody should test it on a race like yours in the Arctic, you know, where for a number of days you're exposed to extreme cold, right? Because but that's how he did all his tests, you know, like his swimming in the Arctic, you know, like blocks of ice floating next to him, you know, he's like having a nice swim, you know, going out, like, right, stuff like that. So
it's pretty amazing.
Still, I would choose cold over hot any day.
So back to it. Like for sure, me too. But it's another challenge, isn't it? I suppose my tactic for this race will be take it very easy during the day and go harder at night. And again, once like I know it's going to be 30 degrees, so just protecting as much skin as possible, a good hat and loads of hydration. You know, a big thing with some of these races is overhydration. But again, like, you know, I think if you know your body well enough, it's like, okay, I'm sweating an awful lot, and I've only drank a liter in the last 4 hours. There's something wrong here. You know, slow down, start drinking more. Because this race is going to take 4 days, so there's no major push. But it's a race from Liechtenstein to Geneva, so it's going to be epic. You know? Crazy, man.
You must enjoy nature, otherwise these races don't make sense, right? Does preparing in the gym even work? Like, can you close yourself off in a room for 12 hours and just like be there and run on a treadmill? Like, does that work?
I probably could, but I wouldn't. You know, it doesn't interest me. Nature and an adventure and sometimes, you know, time away from the phone, time in the wilderness, time by yourself, kind of thing. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Like a big adventure, you know. Like it was minus 30 degrees and I was running across a frozen lake and then the Northern Lights came out, you know, and there's like this thing going green in the sky. It's like, that's an adventure, you know. And you meet some really interesting people on the way to these things, and these races are taking me to places where I wouldn't have gone otherwise, you know.
Probably most people in the world haven't been to, you know, like past the Arctic Circle, you know, and you not just walked but ran through it. Crazy, man. How does navigation work? Like, did you just like go in that direction for like 10 days, you know? Like, we'll see you there.
A lot of it is pretty good. A lot of it is trail. So there's a dog sled race that goes in the Yukon. There's a dog sled race goes ahead of us. So they've got the trail pretty well groomed for them. So you're going to have markers every 250, 300 meters. So unless there's a lot of snow or it's night or something, you can pretty much pick up the markers.
What if somebody gives up during the race? Like somebody can't finish it, gets injured in the middle of the snow there. You know,
that can be tricky. So we've all got this little GPS tracker on us, and you can press an SOS button, and they will come and get you. But you know, if it's night and it's minus 30 degrees, they're not coming for you. You're going to have to survive the night and come and get you the next morning. But it can be
tough. Has there been anything that happened to one of the people that you were racing with? Like, do you ever do like racing with someone going for a certain distance, or do you always keep your?
The vast majority of these two races, I was by myself. And I think most of us like being by. Some people like buddying up with someone, but I like doing my own thing. You kind of when I did race with this gentleman, you kind of lost my own rhythm. You know, I'd find we'd stop and we'd be chatting, but so I knew we'd get going again, and I wouldn't have done everything that I normally do, you know. It's like, okay, fill up this pocket here, put that there, like my stove, get my water going over there. You have your own system, but then someone else is distracting you. But some people do it as teams. Some people enjoy the camaraderie of it.
I noticed in the race that we did, on some parts I would outperform my friend, and in other parts he would. For example, in cycling he was a lot stronger than me because he did a lot of strength training, and for him cycling was 10 times easier than running, right? So during running I would feel like I could go a lot more,
Yeah.
and that I would have to slow down and wait for him.
Yeah.
And during cycling, he had the same feeling for me, right? So we were kind of both slowing each other down. So we might have gotten better results if we've gone separated.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we wanted to do the first one together just
yeah.
because we've never done anything like that, and
Yeah.
we wanted to avoid like, oh shit, if somebody falls off the bike or, you know, like can't run anymore or something like that, to have someone there that can immediately help, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But for the next one, you look like you might run your own.
Yeah.
It's nice to run your own race as well.
Yeah. And I might do the next one without cycling at all. Like I like cycling for the first 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
After that, cycling gets for me like kind of like, you know. But I don't get that with running. I can run and not get bored all the time, you know. And well, so on the other hand, for him, I think it was a little bit different, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that the next one that I'm going to do will be just running, maybe the Kerry Way.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there's a 60K, the 90K, or the 200K.
Yeah. I think I can do all of those. Like it's what you said. It's in your mind, right? Once you get through a certain point, then you can push yourself a little bit more, right? Yeah. Maybe not start with the hardest one first, but slowly work your way up to it. And
it's about taking, like with this, it's what when you're in the race, you don't think I have 200 kilometers to go. You think I'll get to this next checkpoint in 25 kilometers. That's all I'm thinking. Get to the next one. Get to the next one. You don't start counting down. Like it almost got on top of me that time at the start of Canada when I got negative, when I was like after the 30 hours, my stove wasn't working. It's like, oh, I really, you know, I was so tired, and the negative thoughts kind of took over. They
creep in.
They did more than creep in. They took over. And I found myself thinking like, oh, I've 400 kilometers to go in this race, and then I have another 500K race in a month. Like that's, how am I going to do it, kind of thing. But then once I slept, I got back to it, like recalibrated, and it's like, okay, just get to the next checkpoint, next checkpoint. So again, like, yeah, you can do anything. Don't think of it as 200K, just next checkpoint, small bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, definitely. We looked also at like uphill, downhill, you know, when in that race was a lot of up and downs. And then we were like, all right, let's just get to the top of this hill, right? Yeah. That's the next checkpoint. Like we can clearly see it. It's right there. No, it's just a few steps, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about it like that, then it's like, you chunk it down to like extremely small steps, and it's like it's really not hard to get up to the top of this part, right?
Yeah.
It's not. It's just there, like we can see it, right? And then it's not 100 kilometers left. It's just like a few meters, right? And that's a small psychological trick that we use. You know, it's like, oh yeah, just cycle up there, man. Just run there, and it felt a lot easier. You know,
you're breaking it down as well, or you're like you're passing the time while you're doing it as well, kind of thing.
Yeah. Question: do you ever get in like a flow zone where you kind of lose track of time and you're just like going and enjoying the run without like thinking at all, where your mind gets like really clear and you're just going?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think the longer you get into these big races, the clearer your mind gets, kind of thing. Especially when you're in the snow, you know, there's no phone. It's just so silent during by day or by night. You know, up in the Arctic, the sunrise and the sunsets go on for hours. Like I was really like, I'd sleep at maybe 11 o'clock and get up at 2 a.m. And then you got a couple of hours, you might listen to some reggae, and then easing you into the sunrise for a few hours. And
nice.
then just put on like a bit of techno or like a bit of Faithless or something like that. It's like, but you definitely get into a tempo, like flow state, whichever way you want to call it. You're tapping into like a lot of neurochemicals, you know, endorphin, serotonin, dopamine, stuff like that. You know, there's talk of tapping into DMT as well. You know, you can get into those type of chemicals from several different systems, whether it's drumming, whether it's meditation, whether it's extreme exercise.
Yeah, from not sleeping for like 5 days, like you definitely get into that level. Definitely, yeah. True. Yeah, like the body runs on chemicals. That's true.
Yeah, and the brain, and it makes you happy. Adrian, who was making the documentary about the runs, you know, he followed me on boat races, so I kind of ballpark on average see him once a day, and he said during boat races, like he said, you actually get happier the longer the race goes on. So that was definitely a chemical thing, but you know, again, it's probably being away from the phone and being away from
everything. Just disconnecting. I agree. So there's a documentary coming as well.
Yeah. So we hope to have that out for August or September. It's going to be. You can see a teaser for it at the moment on 1000kilometerschaos.com, and there's a little teaser there and a couple of other videos of some other short runs I did in the last couple of years. And And yeah, we're just flat editing at the moment and hoping to make some music make some music to go over it as well.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
We'll leave the link in the show notes later. All right, cool. And did he like follow you around with the camera? Is probably impossible for that long time. So you said you were meeting up on certain points.
He would come in. He would come into me on the skidoo. So he had a skidoo driver, and they would like he'd come in from a checkpoint to a road like 50 kilometers, come in and stop and film me, or he got some good drone footage and stuff like that, and then he'd go away again, and I'd be on my way for 16 hours, and he'd find me somewhere the next day kind of thing.
Was he teasing you like, hey, it's getting hard, like I want to get some rest? Like
Well, yeah, it was interesting. He was like, he was like, how are you doing? And it was another experience having someone follow me with a camera in a race like that. You know, you're kind of going through your own psychological stuff, and you're trying to be as normal as possible, and there's a camera there as well, and you know, they're hoping for a dramatic breakdown in your personality. I'm fine. It was interesting psychology as well.
Yeah, definitely. You know, like you would expect a person to crack under that, and you made it like, oh yeah, it's grand, you know. So that's also interesting in the other direction where you can kind of hold it like that. But I guess you got through it because you love it, right? Because you enjoy doing it, and that's what keeps you going through the pain and the suffering and all of it. Yeah,
there's probably some other psychological reasons for it as well. We can't get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. There is supposedly like in South America tribes where they had to get food or were scouting when they would run marathons on a daily basis, right? And they would do it like for thousands of years. It was like a tribal, you know, and they would run and they would sing and they would have fun and they would enjoy it. And I think that a lot of studies have shown that humans have evolved because they could outrun animals, not because they were faster, but the animals would get tired after like 10 hours of running, right? But we could run 12 hours. And then at one point, the animal will have to sit down, and then you can throw a spear at it, right? And then you catch it. And then you just have to drag it back for another 10 hours and the whole tribe survives and everybody feeds on it, right? So I think we have that kind of animalistic, you know, like a survival drive that can push us forward into like really extreme levels where you can get. And I think it's just normal, but we kind of forgot because we're
for sure
sitting down all the time, you know, in front of computers and shit.
Yeah, we just go to a shop and buy some meat or buy some veggies or whatever.
What do you think about the whole meat and everything? Like, I think that, I don't know, it used to be a lot cleaner what we were eating, and now that it's like too industrialized, you know. And I think that people ate like that, like the situation that I just described, like that people weren't just meat eaters or just vegetarians, but that they would eat what they had. So that means that if for the next 3 days we don't catch an animal, we're just eating plants, right? And then when we actually do catch a zebra somewhere or whatever, we drag it back, and then everybody eats the zebra for 2 or 3 days, right? And I think that's kind of the best way. We sometimes like skip meat for a few days, you know, and just like go vegetarian and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm certainly trying to cut down. Like, I've been threatening to go vegetarian for quite some time now, probably a year. You know, a lot of the advice I was getting was that I wouldn't be able to keep the weight on. You know, I have such a heavy training load. I wouldn't be able to keep the weight on if I would that meat. So I kind of maybe use that as an excuse now. As I try, like we don't cook any meat at home, so sometimes when I'm out, you know, there's not always a super exciting vegetarian option on the menu here. So you would go get a bit lazy and go back to meat. But it's something I'm working on, and I suppose we should all try working on with the environment and everything, just eating a little bit less meat, because like it's all got too easy. Yeah,
definitely. And I do feel better when I do like 2 or 3 days like without. Usually we throw out everything like processed food and stuff like that, and just go veggies all the way, you know, like no pasta, no processed food and stuff like that. Just do like a really cleaning out everything, you know, and after that you're like, oh man, I feel amazing, so light, you know. And that
I'm gonna have a steak and 4 pints of Guinness.
That kind of messes up the whole plan, you know. But hey, you gotta have days like that as well, you know. Certainly the balance between healthy and having fun, you know, has to be
That's right. Yeah. Like people think so. You know, when you do big races, I had a healthy lifestyle, and like I had a reasonably healthy lifestyle, but I love a pint. I love a night on the pints, and I certainly don't always eat clean. I try to eat as clean as possible, but you know, there's pizza nights, there's chips, there's burgers. Yeah. You don't have to be there. You don't have to. We're not Olympians. We're doing it because it's fun, so no one's paying me to do it. So you gotta have a lifestyle as well. And if you didn't have fun, kind of thing, then it would be too much of a sacrifice to make.
I agree. There's a restaurant here in the center of Killarney called Cow, and they have amazing Asian food. After the race, we agreed that we're going to go there and like eat as much as we can, you know, as a reward for doing the race. So by the end of the race, I was just thinking about the restaurant and eating there, man. I was like getting hungry, and I was like, yeah, tomorrow we're eating there, you know, and that was kind of psyching me up for like pushing a little bit harder. And food can definitely be a motivator in the whole story.
Yeah. And I always think too, like no matter how hard a race gets, like if your mind wants to quit or whatever, like no matter what you've gone through in a race, once you've finished the race, had a shower, had some food, you're always fine. You know, it's easy to get over it. So like if you're halfway through a race, like, I could quit now. It's like, nah, it's like, because you'll feel bad because you know after a shower and you've eaten, you'll be fine. So just persist.
Do you think that people have to go through that disappointment of being like, damn, I shouldn't have quit. Maybe I should have pushed a little bit more. That's the learning experience that they need for the next race?
Maybe for some people, yeah. I haven't had that experience yet, I suppose, from quitting. I didn't finish one race due to an injury, but it's just not in my vocabulary to quit kind of thing. And that's one of the tools I use. It's like, you'll be fine after a shower. Get some cow in a shower.
You're grand. Yeah. What happened with the injury there? Was it something serious?
Nothing too serious. No, it was doing the Kerry Way a couple of years ago. That was 150k in, and again, it was. I thought it was a knee injury, but it was probably coming from my quads and my hips. And at the time, I wasn't doing so much mobility work, so that was a big eye opener for me about the mobility. After that, I started working a lot harder on my core and kind of just rounding myself off a little bit. You know, I had been under depression. Oh yeah, you're just running, so just run and you'll train for runs. But you know, maybe one of the things too was during this race, I used the running poles for a while. During the race, I hadn't trained very much with them, and I think the mistake I made was not training with them, because they do change your gait a little bit. They might push the angle of your knees out a little bit, so you're using your muscles in a slightly different way. And that particular muscle probably wasn't that ready, so I just went during the race. But you know, not a major injury, but like I did learn a lot.
Did you like fall, or did you?
No, it just became too sore to walk.
Damn.
Yeah.
Felt sad about it.
I was sad at the time. Yeah, that'll make a documentary.
Yeah, nice. All right, cool. Do you use coffee as a stimulants for races? I know that some people love that. You know, like chuck down a coffee or.
No, I don't use it as a stimulant for races. No. In the past, I have these little Cliff blocks. They've got caffeine in them. Again, if you're going long, the caffeine can help you stay awake a little bit. But you know, I have a coffee a couple of hours before a race, and that just helps you move through some stuff that you need to do before a race. So a Coca-Cola is one a lot of people go for, can be quite nice during a race as well. I don't know what the secret ingredient is to it, but when you're really tired there, it's got the sugar or the caffeine or the secret ingredient or the coca leaves.
That's what the South American tribes actually used to do. While they were running, they were like taking coca leaves and just like dissolving them on their tongue. Yeah,
but they keep them in their cheek. Like I've been in mines in Bolivia and Peru, and they're underground. The miners there, and they've got a big cheek full of cacao leaves and coca leaves. And your saliva is just breaking it down, and it gives them energy. They don't even eat for 12 hours.
Nice.
Yeah. Because it used to be in Coca-Cola.
In Coca-Cola, that's what it got the name from. But then they removed it.
Reagan kind of changed all that, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, and Nancy Reagan as well.
Yes.
Crazy. But a lot of things. I think they were like, they used to sell opium and stuff like that as like a child medication. You know, like, just give it to your kids, you know, they'll be quiet for the day and they can relax and stuff like that. So
but I suppose there still is kind of opioids in, maybe not that much in kids, but like, you know, we're taking opioids. There's a lot of opium in the painkillers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They used to have the tea parties. The tea parties, everyone was just drinking opium tea, you know. Probably getting up to 100 years ago now, when they had the prohibition in America.
Yeah.
There was alcohol was banned, but you know, they were all having tea, and there was poppies in the tea kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They were cutting down apple trees, because people could make cider from the apple trees, but everyone was just growing poppies and getting off their heads in a slightly different way.
Crazy, yeah. Things change, man. Like I see that weed is kind of getting a new upwind now. Like it's certainly like getting legalized in a lot more states in the US, and I think there are a lot of benefits to it, like not just from like smoking it, but in industrial level. Like there's so many things that can be made out of the plant itself. Hemp as well. And I think there's just another industry that's going to like explode again, because it used to be everywhere, you know. I think that the first law that was ever passed in regards to hemp was that it was mandatory to plant it next to cornfields, because it helps you get rid of the vermin. In the soil, it helps the other roots grow larger, because it dies off, and then it becomes
it's a nitrogen fixer or something like that.
Yes, and then other roots get more oxygen and other stuff from the ground a lot better and easier. And so the corn grows better because of hemp growing next to it, right? So the first law ever passed was like mandatory, you have to do it, you know. And the leaves are kind of bigger, so it provides shade for the corn, so it doesn't get burned from the sun. You know, a lot of stuff like that you like wouldn't think of, right? Because you just plant like either just corn or just cabbage or just individually. But I think that agriculture used to be more like mixed together, when one thing it kind of creates a small biosphere, right? Where one thing feeds off the other, you know, like these leaves fall to the ground and they feed this and this way, you know, like, and
it's good, like more biodiversity kind of thing.
Definitely.
So it's interesting the way things have changed, you know. Like alcohol was illegal back then, and poppies you could grow them, and weed you could grow them, and now 90 years later it's almost the complete opposite. But maybe it's changing again with the decriminalization of weed in a lot of the states, and you know, even psychedelics are kind of coming back in as well. John Hopkins have got some really good studies that people in several places are using microdosing of acid or LSD or mushrooms for alcoholics, and people with anxiety and depression and stuff like that. So I think that's going to come in slowly as well, you know, maybe 10 years down the line. I mentioned before we started the podcast, there's this really big podcaster called Tim Ferriss. He's one of the like old school guys. That's kind of one of the first ones that started like a full-time podcast, right? He wrote a book, got famous and all of that, and he was experimenting a lot with drugs, and you know, like experimenting on himself a lot. Like he wanted to be best at, I don't know, Latin dances, and then he just did that for like 6 months straight. It was just dancing, you know, just like you with running, right? And then he got into something else. Like he got into Muay Thai or one of the like martial arts, and went into a country where they were like a little bit shorter than him. So he would do like lose a lot of weight and then gain it back real fast. So he would be basically a weight category above the other guys, right? And he would like be first on a martial arts tournament. You know, he was crazy and stuff like that, but he likes experimenting on himself. And right now he's looking a lot into research just like that, where people are trying out microdosing, and I think it's LSD for PTSD, like people that went to the war or army or something like that and had like really severe trauma, you know, where they're like in a really bad state. And the research so far is like really, really cool. You know, he says that it's helping a lot in a way where you don't have to go for therapy for like 10, 20 years, you know, to get like a few % of an improvement, but where it's like pushing it really good, you know, in a good direction. Have you read, you know, Michael Pollan? That's a really good book as well. Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind.
Okay.
He talks a lot about it. And I suppose how they were doing a lot of these psychological studies back in the 60s until again it all got pushed underground kind of thing. But that's really interesting about the LSD, and he'll talk about the studies that they've been doing. And Michael Pollan, he's a botanist. He's written a couple of very good books about diet and stuff as well. Well respected. So he brought out this book, How to Change Your Mind, probably about 4 years ago now, and he'd never done any psychedelics, and he kind of delves into like everything from peyote to the cambo to all the psychedelics, ayahuasca, and talks about his experience on them, but like from a psychological point of view as well. definitely move it up your list of books to read.
All right, cool. Yeah, I have a bit, like, people keep recommending it, but I tend to listen to audiobooks more than sit down and read them. I was more the auditory type always. That's why I like chats, like talking, listening to music, listening to podcasts, stuff like that, rather than sitting down and reading. My mom was a creation teacher, and she was always like, you have to read, like, and it always felt like so boring to me. I always felt like listening more, and I would rather go to a conference and sit down for 3 days and listen to someone than read for like 3 or 4 hours.
We're all different.
Yeah, definitely. But I'll do put it on my to listen list. Yeah. You mentioned ayahuasca. There are also a lot of research coming out with that as well. A lot of people have been mentioning it on podcasts and around the world. Interestingly, also mentioned Joe Rogan there. He also says that a lot of people report the same thing. Like, usually when people do drugs, everybody kind of has their own kind of experience and goes into, like something different, right? Yeah. But with this, people kind of like go into the same room and like see the same thing. Like an entity walks into the room and like tells them about, like nature, and like helps them out. And they say like, oh, it's the spirit of the world, and it gave us some ideas. And a lot of people say that after they do it, like a lot of, like things fall in place for them. So I don't know, man, it sounds good, but you like have to go to a shaman somewhere in the forest or I don't know, like it's not like you can buy it in the local drugstore.
No, South America is the home of it. Yeah.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the Uncle Gold podcast. If you want to support this whole project, make sure you go to the second channel called Uncle Gold Podcast Clips. There I create short form videos with the best topics from the interviews that I do on the main channel. You get their videos daily. They're separated nicely into playlists, so you can choose the topic that you want to watch most. And now let's go back to the video.
I didn't think I would get this big into running, but I enjoy it and I'm reasonably good at it. I've done made a good bit of money for charities and stuff like that. So there's some good things to come from it. And it just gives me an all around better lifestyle. Tend to spend less nights in the pub and more mornings in the mountains, kind of thing.
Yeah. Agree. You mentioned the financial part there. How does that work? Like, are these races expensive? Like, how does that part work? Like,
so some of these races, the international ones, can be expensive. It's expensive to enter. Look, I'm lucky enough. Montaigne sponsor me a lot of the gear for the cold weather and stuff like that. So that definitely helps quite a lot, and they have really good gear. I was wearing their gear in the races even before they came on board to sponsor me. So they're definitely, it's a big cost.
I can imagine that the sled is expensive and the gear associated with that.
Yeah, they like a sleeping bag. Sleeping bag can be €700. Sled was a good couple of €100. Yeah. But again, it's at the Beacon Hospital in Dublin came on board, and they helped me out with the financing of some of it. So it's coming together, and I suppose now like this race in Switzerland. But offered an entry into that, so that makes it all worthwhile.
Did that come because you placed really high in the previous race?
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. What are your projections for that race? Like,
survival.
Yeah.
Look, for me, like, you see how white I am. It's the heat that I wouldn't be able to go.
Yeah.
I've never gone too well in the heat. It's a long race. There's 24,000 meters of climbing, so that's 3 times more than what I've climbed in a race. So basic survival.
Yeah, Switzerland is full of mountains.
Yeah. When you think about it, 24,000 meters, so that's a half marathon in vertical, over 390 kilometers an hour. Yeah, but it's good. Like passing the Eiger, you're passing some really iconic mountains.
Yeah. Do you ever stop and take a picture?
I just have my memories.
Yeah. I kind of figured you would say that. Yeah. All right.
Look, I suppose I'm lucky enough that the documentaries that definitely will capture some of the scenery. But for me, it's memories, experiences. One of the best experiences I had was the one I described to seeing the Northern Lights at minus 30 degrees. Like no picture's going to do that justice.
Yeah.
I just have memories that that was a nice moment, kind of thing. Call it flow, call it whatever. But you're not thinking about your mortgage. You're not thinking about the bills. You're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about. You're just in the moment and enjoying this nature.
I agree. The race that we did started actually early, and the first part was kind of going straight with a little incline, and then there was a short mountain up, It was very steep actually, but it wasn't long, so they wanted to get us tired in the first part. So when we got on top of it, it was actually the moment when the sun started to rise. Nice. And we were on top of the mountain when we were going up with the sun, and that view, it was amazing. Like I did stop and take a picture, but yeah, just like you said, like it's like you can't capture it in a phone. You can't capture it. You really have to experience it and see it and be there. I would love to see the Northern Lights once or twice or multiple times, like my girlfriend's done it. She's been there with some kind of tour where in Sweden or Finland actually. I'm not sure actually, but there's a like you can take a bus or train or something that takes you there. You cross the Arctic Circle and they put a stamp in your passport and you can see the lights, and there's like a Santa Claus village, like the touristy stuff like that. But it's cool. Lapland, Lapland. That's exactly it. Yeah. That sounds also nice, but probably spending time in nature like you did would be another level.
Yeah. You could do the 100-mile race in the Yukon. You can see it there.
Yeah. Sounds like a challenge. We'll put that on the to-do list next to the book.
to listen list.
Yeah.
There's a race. I'm going to Rovaniemi in next February, all going well. So there's a 300-kilometer race there in Rovaniemi in Finland. So come there if you want. There's shorter versions of it as well. And so does Seed now.
All right. That's a challenge that needs to be like it will be a shame not to accept it now, but let me put a rain check on that. I actually don't know where I'll be next year. We have some plans changing for now, like with the job and everything, and it's taking a lot of time. Like the advantage that I had last year was that I wasn't working. I was on COVID payment, and then I had like the whole day where I could prepare for the race. We would go cycling, we would go swimming, running, and we will be on the road basically the whole day. And when you're working,
it's harder to get those hours out, but it's possible,
It is. Yeah.
You just it's a big commitment, and when you're relationship, it's hard to have time for it.
Yeah. I also made a big commitment with this podcast and the channel, and I really want to work on that, because I love hearing stories like this from people, and I would like to do that more, more often, bring more people and chat about different stuff. So yeah, I can also want to go in that direction. I feel that if I maximize that now for a few years, that I could create a lifestyle where more time will be available for me, with like the nomad lifestyle or a digital nomad, how they call them, where you can work from your laptop anywhere, right? Because if this podcast gets successful, I could meet you in Yukon after the race and we can be like, hey man, how you're feeling, right? Yeah. And you could do the interview basically from there because you don't need to be in an office, right? Yeah. A lot of things changed during the last 2 years, and I think that more companies and businesses are opening up to the idea to have people not working in a boxed in office, but rather let their people, work.
Companies are saving money, not renting an office and stuff as well. They figured out people are just as productive at home, if not more productive at home.
I noticed that I'm actually more productive because, as I said, I love chatting. And then in the office, I would be like, hey, Kevin, how's it going, man? And then sometimes I will get into stories with people. And then, like somebody asks you one thing and you just forget about another thing that you have to do. And here, like when you close yourself in a room, it's like you can get a lot more stuff done because there's, like no one pulling you on the sleeve and being like, hey. What do you do when you're not racing?
Working, reading books. I've got a property outside of town, so there's like 10 acres of forestry there. I'm slowly rewilding, so just working in the garden, walking the dogs, spending time with my partner. Just living life nice and chilled.
Sounds cool.
Got a motorbike, so if the weather's good, go off on the motorbike.
Nice. Never liked motorbikes. No. I don't know why. No, but I love farmland and what you said, like I would love to do that once, get a nice property somewhere and work from home, and then in the free time spend more time in nature.
It's nice.
That's why I prefer Killarney over Dublin.
Sure.
There's a lot of like job offers from there where you could actually really easy get a new job, but you're in concrete and bricks and stuff. Like I can do that for like 3 weeks, and then I get bored of it, and I'm like,
I think my limit's about 3 days now. No, don't get me wrong. Like I lived most of my 20s in cities in Australia. From Sydney to Brisbane to Melbourne, I was on the Gold Coast, but I remember when I kind of coming into my 30s in South America, I was like, cities weren't doing it for me anymore.
I know the feeling. That's why we kind of stayed in Killarney. I passed on a lot of job offers just because I like the fact that I can walk out here and be in the national park in like 2 minutes, right? And then I go for a walk, grab a coffee in the Black Sheep, and go for a walk, because it just relaxes you. Like when you're at the computer all day, you're kind of just like,
the light as well.
And staring into green, science proved that helps you relax, and like that's what one of the benefits that nature gives you is that everything is painted green, and that's one of the colors that kind of relaxes you and calms you down. So nature all the way.
Yeah, I agree.
Tell us about the Black Sheep as well.
The Black Sheep is a hostel that I opened when I moved back home. I bought a building and renovated it and opened up Black Sheep almost 6 years ago to the day. 40 beds. Tried to be an eco adventure hostel, so there's a veggie garden out the back. We got chickens and ducks out the back. At the moment, there's a really good crew, internationals working there. And then 2 years ago, when the pandemic hit, the hostel was closed. It looked like been closed for a while, so a cheeky little move to move a coffee machine we had inside, moved that out to the lane, just to serve coffee to people because there was no place to get good coffee. Everything was shut at the start of the pandemic. And lucky enough, it's gone from strength to strength. So now they're kind of two businesses, and they kind of work together quite well. I think we do good coffee. There's a good vibe down there, good staff. So it's a nice little business. Yeah, I love it. That's actually where we spent a lot of time because during the pandemic, as you said, you couldn't go anywhere. So we basically went for coffees there almost every day, and coffee was really delicious. I'm from cinnamon buns. Cinnamon buns as well, and now you have the Snickers bar, the healthier version of that's also delicious. But in Croatia we have a really strong coffee culture. People usually after work, during work, before work, they would get like 5 coffees per day. We just sit down and chat. That's like what we do, and we get a lot more sunshine. So every bar has like a big terrace, and mostly people sit outside, and it's like in a street like this, you would have like a bunch of cafes, and you could like go from one to the other, just meeting people, and it's a great crack. But what was I trying to say with it? So not a lot of people go into like really trying out different coffees. They usually find a place where they go for one coffee all the time. And the one that I showed you is kind of the best seller in Croatia. Most people drink it and drink black coffee at home where they cook it like that, or the bar stuff that you get, like from the machine. But I noticed that you're trying out different coffees, and that you have different flavors of coffee. So we change up the bean every now and again. I suppose you got the coffee belt, and some coffees taste chocolatey, or some are fruitier, or like African coffees are stronger. I don't know, I think in Croatia you like a darker roast as well. So like here is probably Ireland's probably more of a medium roast. A lot of people have their coffees with milk here in Ireland. So we just play around with a kind of thing, give people variety and see what people like, and it's interesting, it's fun. Definitely. You're always learning. And you, I love to try out stuff, and then when you come like 2 months later, you're like, oh man, this is completely new. So I like that part. Do you have a favorite type of coffee? Or I like the South American coffees. But then every now and again, a good coffee from Africa is quite a first taste, like, what's going on here? I don't like it, but then you're like, oh yeah, that's quite tasty kind of thing. We every month or two we get one from Ethiopia or something like that, so it's nice to try. Or I'd have, like, as I said, we have the AeroPress machine at home, so that makes good Americano. So we generally have an African bean at home, and just make that Americanos and that in the morning. It's nice. A lot of Italians like Americanos like that, or espresso, just like straight. In Croatia also a lot of coffee with milk, most people drink it in cafes like that. But hey, to each his own, some people like it, like some people can handle milk. Like I know that my girlfriend is not really good with milk, so she usually takes with just a little milk or without at all. So the milk alternatives are getting quite popular as well. Like we sell a lot of oat milk now. Definitely, and it tastes almost the same. So it's a bit sweeter, but it's nice. It's good. And I sometimes do like it a little bit sweeter. Like most people don't put any sugar in the coffee. I like it sometimes, but I can do both. Like depends on the mood and how you're feeling. But have you
got like a coffee ritual, like wake up in the morning and do like a coffee when you take a book and read, or is it more like on the go, like when you get it up?
Yeah. If I'm gonna, I generally wait till I get to the hostel to have my coffee because because I have a flat white, so the steamer, the machine does the steam quite well. But if I'm at home, then I'll have Americano at home. But generally, I get up, have breakfast on the go, kind of thing. I was only it would be nice to be relaxed enough to read a book in the morning, but it's like there's always too much to be done.
Yeah. And you seem like the let's go and do it type, So yeah. Cool.
Yeah. I always say to my partner, she's like, I'll cook more and I'll do loads of things when I break my 2 legs and finish. So if I break my 2 legs, there's loads of things that are involved in way more relaxed Kevin.
Yeah. But it's sometimes hard to even find time to relax and just like get to the stuff. Like I just keep piling on the to-do list and rarely take the time to take a lot of things off it. I think that's also sometimes hard to balance that out. But I look at life as a journey where you kind of explore and try to figure stuff out just like that. Like how do I get to the end of my to-do list, and make the things that I want to do the way that I want. And one of the things that I usually ask people at the end of these podcasts is like directly into that, this whole podcast got started with the idea like how to find the gold in life and like go after the pleasures that you want and the things that you love. Do you have any tips on that for people that might be listening?
Just do what you enjoy. I think for me, just doing what you think you probably a lot of the time what you found was fun when you were a child. Then you became an adult and you stopped doing that thing because you became an adult. But like I was on the mountains the last day and I was having flashbacks when I was a child, just bouncing around on rocks, and I was really enjoying it. So I think people just like find what they really enjoy. Some people it's music, some people it's reading, some people it's dancing, some people it's anything. It's like carving spoons out of wood or making coffee. Whatever it is you enjoy, do more of that.
Yeah.
You can get paid for it, better again.
Yeah. Definitely.
Keep it simple, You don't need that piece of gold, that's just a material thing. Just keep yourself happy.
I agree. It's a metaphor, it's hard to put everything under one name. I think that's why I chose it, because most people associate gold as fancy stuff there that you should be hunting for. But I don't think it's in the material at all. I think it's more either on the spiritual side or on, as you said, like doing the things that you want, which is in a way kind of spiritual, right? Because if you're enjoying, you're kind of meditating in the situation, right? Because you're enjoying it so much, you're really into it. And the flow state that we described earlier, I think that's a form of meditation as well. Like you get into a headspace where you're just like one with what you're doing. Yeah.
Your ego's gone to sleep and you're just in the present moment. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Ken, thank you so much for sharing the tips, ideas, and your experiences. It was amazing